So that's how I like to start. I kind of like to start mid conversation, like I just hit record right now, because I don't want anything ever to be rehearsed. I like to just have a conversation because I feel like the best things come out during that. So, everybody, this is Coach T, Trevor Wicken. He is the founder of the MS Gym. It is the largest platform with people who have MS, any neurological condition. Coach T knows what the hell he's talking about because he has every friggin' degree that there is to have on the body. Coach, I'm going to put you on the spot just this one time, and I promise I won't do it again. How freaking long did you go to school and learn about all of this? And then I'm going to ask you why. What happened?
I'm still in school.
I figured you're always learning.
Yeah, so I got my undergrad, my 4-year undergrad at Colorado State in sports medicine and like exercise rehabilitation. I got my master's degree from Penn West. I think they changed the name now, in exercise physiology and biomechanical analysis. And then I've been on a like what would be considered a PhD track for neuroscience for probably the last 5 years. I'm always learning from my clients. I'm always getting certified. Like I've just wanted to get as much education as I possibly could. So like I'm a perpetual student and I'm an educator. Like that is my passion. Like you can put me in a room of 55,000 people and give me a topic and be like, go. And I'm like, that's my sweet spot. Right. So like that's one of my things. Like I want the highest educated people in this community that have neurodegeneration because knowledge is power. And I mean, like wisdom and information is knowledge. Applied knowledge becomes power. And then that equips you and empowers you to be your own best advocate, which dealing with this neuro stuff and dealing with all these weird disruptive conditions and whatever, you have to know what the heck you're talking about. Otherwise, like a lot of times, like you just get the wrong information or you leave doctor's appointments and you're like, I don't really know what the hell else to do. Like, okay, like nothing, like that was pointless. Like I want every day you to wake up and feel equipped and empowered and educated, knowing what's going on inside of you, outside of you, and what steps you need to take. And that's how I live my life.
It's exactly why before I hit record, guys, I said, Trevor, I'm like, I don't want to rehearse anything. Like, I just want to talk. He's like, I work best that way. So this is perfect.
Yeah, I suck at scripts.
Yeah, I can't follow it. I'd forget it anyway. Yeah. All of your education, everything that you know, I loved hearing you talk about how the body takes detours. Because I figured this out by watching my body and how it responded. When I started walking again, I thought that was it. I was going to be walking. There would be no problems from then on. I mean, I healed it. Why would I not ever be able to walk again? But in the early stages of healing, anytime I would get sick, the flu, stressed, I would lose my legs. And I started to think, well, if the signal was going through, why isn't it going through now? And I came up with the body must have made a detour around that scar. And the more I read, it was, yeah, your body can regenerate myelin. It's one of the few things that can regenerate in your body, but it doesn't have to if it can find a route around it because of how much resource and energy a body needs to rebuild myelin. If it doesn't have to, it's not going to. Your main teaching in the MS Gym is your body can do exactly what you need it to do, what you want it to do, because your body's always taking detours. Right. Now, why do you say that the body's taking detours? Because Janine over here, who doesn't have any degrees, I'm like, yeah, I can, but you can back it up.
Yeah, well, science says so. Right? Science says so, and anecdotal evidence and experiential evidence working with people like you over the past 20 plus years. Like I've been working with neurodegenerative conditions, y'all, since I was like 20, and I will be 44 this year. Right. So that's like my entire life has been centered around chronic illness, neurologic conditions. And it doesn't just go for neuro. Like when somebody has heart attacks or they have arthritis or they have whatever, the body has been created. Your whole nervous system has been created with contingency plans and alternate routes since day one, right? That's why the human nervous system is so fascinating. The information and study on it is endless because it's so complex and so multi-layered, and it's an elegant symphony of creation and destruction all the time to keep that balance. Like the body gets rid of things that it doesn't need to use, and then it goes towards the thing that it can use that are more beneficial, that are going to help it survive and thrive better. So, you guys have probably heard Janine talk about the detours, and I have slides in multiple PowerPoint presentations where I have a slide of like a main highway, like a 4-lane highway on each side, right? That is the highway between your brain and, like, let's say your foot, right? So when you get a neurologic condition, a virus, MS, Lyme, whatever, that road becomes scarred. It becomes damaged. It is blown up, right? And what happens when there's a massive problem in a highway? Like, traffic stops. It goes from 85 miles an hour down to like stop and go gridlock, right? And nothing happens. It takes forever for signals to move. Well, built along every single highway are frontage roads, right? So the only reason why highways get bigger and bigger and bigger is because they're used more frequently, and it is the fastest, most efficient route. That's why highways develop. That's why they build them that way. But on the side of highways, so that they can be maintained, there's frontage roads. These are small, undeveloped roads. Well, in the brain, those are also neurologic pathways from your brain to that dropped foot or whatever. Brain's like, oh, well, we have another location and another way to get there. So it starts using roads B and road C to take that signal and send it down to your foot. Well, as you become more successful and as you have more successful reps or successful steps, the brain's like, oh my gosh, this is the path of least resistance. This is the path towards survival. This is the path that helps me thrive. This is the path that gets me from A to B with using as little energy as possible. This is the efficiency. So then what it does is it navigates and it tells the body to send more cells there, more myelin there, more neurocytes there, everything else. And then those roads start to become thicker and more developed and smoother and faster and wider. And then eventually those become the preferred routes. And that main highway just gets shut down because the body doesn't need to use it anymore.
Maybe we should have rehearsed, because then I could have gotten the tears out beforehand.
Yeah.
I have been saying this for years and hoping that it's true, because I see how the body works.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, eventually, as your body takes that detour, the detour becomes the primary route.
Absolutely.
And these are all these little tiny pieces that I found along the way. And to hear someone with your list of degrees and education to explain that and say, yes, Janine, that's exactly what's happening in your body. It just gives more evidence to people when they're coming across you and me and everyone else to say, I do have options. Because how many people have you run into where they grew up with no options? So whatever you believe mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that's what's going to show up in your body. If you don't believe your body can take a detour, then your body's not going to. Have you seen evidence of that with your clients?
Oh, yeah. For over and over and over and over again. I mean, I'll just say this because I'm in the spotlight right now, but I'm the guy that people would come to as like the last hope, like my entire career. They would be referred in by a family member or a physician or whatever else might be, being like, I was sent in by my mother-in-law because like I'm out of options and they said there's nothing else that I can do for you, but she had awesome results for you, so like you're it. And I'm like, okay, cool, like just give me the ball and like let's play. I mean, that's
because you know the outcome. You know they're going to walk again. You know about those detours. They don't have to believe it or not. They just have to watch the results. Do what you tell them to do. What did you say before? More reps to more steps?
Yeah, it's more reps, more successful repetitions, more successful steps, more successful swings of your leg, where it is creating a non-threatening response, meaning no spasticity, no weakness, no pain, no tremors. When the body finds that efficient pathway of like, oh, that felt amazing, that is a successful rep. Speaking a second language, when all of a sudden you can say a full sentence in a second language, and in your head you hear it in English, you transcribe it in your head, and you speak it out of your mouth, and it's translated into Spanish. That's an empowering feeling, and that's proof, right? Learning is proof that those detour pathways happen. Behavioral medicine has been based on the concept of neuroplasticity for like 100 years. Like, this is not a new concept. It's coming out because there's more people like me and other people in other fields that are finally like, oh my gosh, like the body can heal. It's not static. It's not stuck. It can move. It's a fluid, dynamic organism. right? And if people's behaviors can change and their words can change and their relationships can change, why can't their body change through movement? Because speaking and thinking is a movement in your body. Like digestion. Why do you think digestion and cleaning up your diet changes your body? That's a different fuel system. You being able to utilize different macronutrients and micronutrients and minerals and vitamins in your body and use them well is a skill. It's a neurologic skill set in your body. Your brain has to make the decision of, yes, we can use this, or no, we can't. If we can use this, then we thrive and we get better and our body composition is good and we have strength and endurance. If it's garbage going into our system, that's poison, and your body just goes and just closes down. So when you look at all of these different fields, like the only way that people improve is through the power of neuroplastic change and the detours that you have discovered in yourself. And I'm happy that like I was the one that you felt validated through. Like that's amazing. And like that's what I see every single day in the MS gym.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't expect to get emotional during this at all. So this is wonderful. Yeah, that is good. You know, we hear in society all the time, you know, when there is a brain injury, a little child, it's okay. They're going to make new pathways. They're going to heal quickly because they're so young and their bodies can do it quickly. But then later on, you know, you get someone who's older and they have a brain and they're like, oh, they have a brain injury and they're thinking, oh, are they going to heal? You know, maybe they're too old. A lot of people feel like, exactly. A lot of people feel like, oh, you know, I'm too old. My body's too tired. That's bullshit. I don't know the science behind it. And this is why I love having you, the science behind it. Your body, what I tell people, is never too old. If you're alive, your body's always going to make those detours and find that path. But it's up to you to remove the layers and years of shit that you put inside your body to make it easier for your body to find those detours. Like you said, with the roads, if the roads are completely littered, if you use Waze, Google Maps, whatever it is, those roads would be quicker. But if they're littered with shit, it's still going to take you a long time. Right? So does it matter, Trevor, Coach T, how fucking old you are? Can you still heal?
No. Like
does not matter.
Like the thing with aging, it has like there's people in their 90s and there's studies that have come out over and over and over again, people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s that are putting on muscle tissue, that are putting on bone mass, that are shrinking tumors, that are improving neurologic function, that are beating Alzheimer's. Like I was one of the leading programmers on the Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation. We regrew hippocampal cells in 70 and 80-year-olds that they said was lost through aerobic exercise. Through aerobics, right? So that's a crock of shit when people are sitting there and they're like, there's nothing else you can do. You're too old. Because like we have a lot of people in the MS gym that are 55, 60, 65, 70 years old, have had MS for 30 something years, and they're getting better, right? The only thing that gets in the way is that there is a natural progression of aging. Like that you cannot escape it, but you have to be smarter about managing your body because you don't have the luxury of screwing it up as much as you did in your 20s. You cannot go drink. You cannot go eat a bunch of pizza. You can't go like put a bunch of like crap in your lungs and in your like whatever. You just won't recover as well because those systems, just like a vintage car, you have to take very good care of a vintage car. But there's cars running on the road right now that are 70 years old. Your body is going to run until it's done.
It's done. And I'm glad you brought up go ahead, keep going.
No, I was going to say, as you age, it's just, there are some complications with comorbidities, but those comorbidities were always happening regardless of whether you had MS or you had Lyme or you had Epstein-Barr or whatever else it is. It just further complicates it. And so like movement is medicine and movement will help. But if you don't eat well, if you don't hydrate, if you're not sleeping well, if you're not managing your stress, if you have shitty toxic relationships see, I get fired up. You got me fired up.
Keep going.
If you have these bad relationships, if you have like old wounds and trauma that you're too either embarrassed or arrogant to go deal with, that trauma will stay in your body, and years of trauma is just like pounding your body over and over and over again, emotionally, spiritually, relationally. And like, you will not heal if you don't heal like yourself and your soul first. Like it's just the way it is, because you can fix a broken machine, but if the heart inside of it is not transformed, then you ain't gonna heal. It just doesn't work like that.
Now I'm thankful for my
Let's go.
glasses. Yeah, listen, I'm noticing how I'm feeling when you're talking, and I'm feeling the same way I did when I came across the information that for the first time, that I could heal and that I could walk again. Everything that you're saying right now is, when I speak about my own experiences, and I speak about what I think happened inside of my body, and these little glimpses of information that I found to support that. And to hear you, as someone as educated and experienced as you are, talk about these things is so validating. And I know it's going to help so many people build that library of evidence in their brain that it can happen. And I was laughing when you were bringing up, we're not going to recover the way we used to when, like, in our 20s, because I have a 20-year-old son who, he will be throwing up 8 o'clock in the morning. He'll call me on the cell phone and be like, "Ma, bring me a bucket." And I'm running into the bucket. I'm like, "What did you do last night?" He's like, "I didn't eat. I had too many." He's hungover. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. 12 o'clock, he's getting up. He's like, "I'm going to work." I'm like, You're good?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." He's like, and he's looking at me like I'm crazy. When you're 40, 45, you need at least 2 days to recover. At least 3 days to recover. This kid needs 2 hours, 3 hours to recover.
Right.
Your body can always do it. Is it going to take a little bit more resources? Like, he can eat. He got up and he ate Taco Bell. He ate Taco Bell.
Right.
And then he went to work and he was fine. We can't do that. We got to hydrate. We got to eat the good food. We got to give our body rest. And like you said, those toxic relationships, that is something people don't realize, that they have buckets inside of their bodies. And when those buckets become full of all the shit that they have been packing down and not dealing with, yes, you're preventing your healing, because your body needs resources. And if it's packed down with shit, if there is litter all over the streets and you're not going to be able to get through. I'm glad you brought up the toxic relationships, because people need to understand that you cannot just put the shitty marriage that you have aside and think, okay, I'm going to deal with my MS and I'm going to heal. No, when you decide to heal, you have to heal everything, and you don't get to pick and choose what comes up for healing first. Have you found that with your clients, they go, okay, I want to heal and I'm just going to focus on the physical, and then their home life and their spouse and all of this other shit comes up in their life
all the time? So we call it, like, same thing. You use the word bucket. So I call it the threat bucket, right? So in that threat bucket, the emptier it is, the more room you have and more neurologic reserve and space you have for learning and habit change and lifestyle improvement, because you're focused on that. But if your threat bucket starts to fill up, like, things that fill up the threat bucket are job stress, relational stress, marital stress, financial stress. And when you come down to a chronic illness, you got loss of purpose, loss of profession, loss of play, loss of like finances and performance, and like, you're like, who am I? You have a loss of identity. All of that trauma starts to just fill up this bucket. And when that thing starts to overflow, that's when symptoms show up, because symptoms in your body are protective mechanisms by your brain, because it's trying to help you survive. So it makes you have numbness in your feet or weakness in your legs, because you are safer sitting on your butt in a chair or lying on your back than you are up moving around, because you have a visual, vestibular, and possibly systemic, catastrophic events going on inside of you, and it is too dangerous to walk. So you get performance. You only get performance when the threat bucket is below the tripwire that actually produces protective symptomatic responses. So in order to heal, you have got to clean the inside of your house. You can't just paint the outside. Because if the inside is a mess and the inside of your life is a mess, but you just try to paint the outside and make it good, it's like a whitewashed tomb, man. Like, you're whitewashed on the outside and you're dead underneath. And I have so many people, they come to me and they're like crushing it in the MS gym. They're like, I've done all the programs. I work out every day. Like, I'm doing all your stuff. Like, why am I not getting better? And I'm like, let's take an inventory list of, like, you need to look at your relationships. You need to look at your perception of yourself. Like, do you feel like you're worthy of healing? Do you feel embarrassed? Do you feel like angry? Do you have bitterness inside you? Like, do you like hate God? Do you hate your spouse? Do you hate your kids? Like, do you feel like everybody just left you? Do you feel abandoned? Like, there's so many traumatic responses from a chronic illness, because it's not, and I say this with the utmost respect to cancer people, because my mom was one of them. Cancer is something that is so forefront that they have a barrage of weapons to come in and just hammer that thing out. But with a chronic illness, so many people are just dismissed, neglected, and like basically abandoned, being like, there's nothing more we can do for you. This is progressive. You should get your affairs in order. Like, it's just the way it is. Like,
Just get
that is
used to the wheelchair,
oh my
Janine. This is what
gosh.
MS is.
Like, dude, I just want to be like, you're negligent or you're ignorant. One of the two. If you're a medical professional and you are saying that, you're negligent or you're ignorant. And I really hope that you just don't care. Otherwise, you should probably turn in your license and give it to me. Just kidding. But,
right? I could use a little license over here.
Right?
Some of the things that neurologists say to people that are so deflating and traumatic in themselves, and now they have to heal from that trauma. We have to undo all the shit that the neurologists have said. It took me a very long time for me to get over the neurologist saying to me, Janine, just be happy nobody dies from MS. So you'll be in a wheelchair the rest of your life. You'll be fine. And I thought, my God, my standard for living is a little bit higher than alive. I want to be more than just alive. I want to play with my kids. I want to run. I want to go to theme parks with my kids and go on the goddamn rides. And it's all possible, but we're not told that until we go out looking for solutions. We go out looking for answers. And you, me, people who do what we do and say, oh no, healing is possible, we're always the last to be found because they try everything else, because everything else is so much louder. And we're over here going, no, your body can heal. Everyone's body can heal. There's nothing special about it.
Well, and I've been fortunate to recently, over the past year, get teamed up with some really, really good neurology teams. Like Dr. Vartanian out at Weill Cornell University, Dr. Mitzi Spallone, that's like she's like the nerdy neurologist or something like that. I just was with MS Views and News and they had a doctor's panel, and like these guys were basically like, if your doctor is not helping you and equipping you build a treatment team and give you a multi-pronged approach with exercise being number one, and diet and mindset and stress and relationships and resources, meaning like people that help you with the things you can't do, you need to find another physician. And they're like, I realize that's not so easy sometimes, especially if you're in smaller towns or you're in a rural community.
Or you don't even know that those kinds of doctors exist. And why would you go looking for them?
Exactly. Yeah. So they are out there. They are out there. And so for everybody watching this, they are out there, but you will have to go looking for them because they're not forefront. They're not the loudest. They're not whatever. But there's a growing group and it's very encouraging for me. Like, there's a growing group of medical doctors and physicians that are like, let's go. And they're so cool to work with. And they value me and what I do and what you do, Janine, as equals to what they do. They're just part of the team versus like the end all be all. This is the treatment plan. So that's how medicine's evolving. And people like you and people like me and like your followers and my gymmers and everybody else, they're changing the narrative because we're empowering and equipping them to go into their appointments being like, actually, no, I'm doing this exercise program. I'm fixing my diet. And that's why I'm improving. It's not only because of these DMTs that you're giving me. Yes, that's helping modulate some stuff and helping me feel okay. But I'm doing the work and I'm changing my life. And this has become a passion project for me. That's why I'm getting better. So our tagline is live a life by design, not by diagnosis. Because you are designing your path. You are involved in the authorship of your story. That diagnosis is not the end. It never will be. It wasn't for me. It's not for you. And anybody listening to this, like, this is not the end, but it will take effort. You got to put your hand down and start writing that story. It's not going to be given to you.
These are the conversations that empower them to walk into that doctor's office with confidence, with power to talk back and not be in that situation of, okay, that's what's going to happen to me. Okay, let me just listen to you. No, educate yourselves. And that's why I bring people like you and you utilize the platform that I have so they know you have options. You don't have to do this, but now you know that this is an option. And now, Trevor, when we get off later, I'm going to reach out to you and see how I can get in touch with those doctors so that we can bring those doctors to more people and give them the resources to reach these types of people because they're out there and no one knows about it because everything is so medication and this is what's going to happen to you. We need to stand up and be louder and let them know, well, we're the example. Healing is possible. And this is how you do it. So you were 12 years old when you knew you had something special. 12 years old. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so I've been an athlete since I was 5. I was a competitive swimmer when I was 5, like swimming against 8-year-olds, and always played sports and stuff like that. But uh so I started to get like weird little injuries when I was a kid, and I don't know, it was just strange. Like I always kind of had this injury movement pattern thing, and then like even when I was young, I remember just being like, well, like swimming, if my shoulder hurt as I was coming like this, I would try to be like, okay, what's happening to my body? Where does it hurt? What am I doing? And I would notice my shoulder was high. And then I'd start focusing on keeping my shoulder down as I was swimming. The pain would go away. Right. So at like 10, 11, 12 years old, I'm like, well, okay, so it's don't do that. Like, don't put your body in that position, retrain it to do something different, i.e., detours. Right. So at 12 years old, I was sitting at a restaurant with my dad, and we were sitting outside, and I was like watching this person with like a crutch cane or a cuff cane walk. And they were dropping into that crutch and then like hiking that other hip up. Like they were getting this motion going on. And I was watching them, and I'm sitting there staring at them. And my dad looked at me, and he kind of had this like smirk that he gets when he knows something. And he's like, Trev, like, what do you see? And I'm like, well, that lady is using a cane because she can't put weight on her right hip, so she's having to shift her weight over to the left to take the pain off of the right. And then as she's doing that, she's using her shoulder to walk instead of her legs to walk, and it's throwing her neck back. So she probably has neck pain, Dad. And
12
he
years
just
old.
smiled at me, you know. And then I got hurt when I was 16 playing football, and I went to a guy who was a neuromuscular specialist, and like I had 3 doctors tell me that they needed to fuse my spine at 16 years old, like 4 levels. So I would have been like lost all athletic capability at that point. So my dad's like, that's not happening. So we found this guy who does pretty much what I do now. And he looked at me, he did an assessment. He's like, bro, he's like, you got all the swimmer and football muscles going on. You're like, your chest, your shoulders, your lats, but your glutes suck, your back's weak, your hamstrings are weak, and we've got to get them balanced. Once we get them balanced, you will feel better. And within 8 weeks, I went from taking 9 to 10 Advil a day to nothing. And I was back in the pool, back in the weight room, and I played that next year in football before deciding to go year round in swimming and go to like Olympic trials and all that kind of stuff. But I was like, dude, if movement hurt me, movement can fix me. And I said this to this guy named Dale Greenwald, and he's like, exactly. Like, that's why I do what I do. If movement hurt you, then movement can heal you. Your body was just in a wrong pattern. And so at that moment, I would come home every single day, and I would take one of his business cards every single time I left an appointment. And I had a big like medal and trophy board that my dad made me, and I put all my swim medals on it. And I stapled those business cards across the whole frame of this I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. And then I applied to med school. I was talking about integrated medicine back in 2001, and I got laughed out of interviews for med school. They're like, that's never going to happen. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Watch me, fucking watch me.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So I
continue.
walked out of like 2 different interviews, and I was like, yeah, actually, like this is going to happen. So if I don't do this here, I'm going to do it somewhere else. And they're like,
I will find a way, because if plan A doesn't work, I'll take plan B.
That's right.
There's always a way. Yes.
So that's my story. Like,
your father, he knew that there was another way. He knew that your body could heal. Is he the one who planted that seed? Your body can heal?
I think he listened to me. I think he cultivated that out of me.
That's what I'm asking. Like, was it your intuition, or was it a seed that was planted?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like it was intuition.
Yeah, no, I definitely would say like God blessed me with that gift to like see it, and I can feel it, and I've been able to do it forever, but my dad saw it and like cultivated and like built that confidence in me. And then he gave me this vision at one point. He's like, Trev, I know you didn't get into med school. This was when I was like 21, and I was reeling because I didn't get into med school twice, and I had perfect marks on everything. And I had 2,000 hours of orthopedic surgical experience, and I had letters from all these people, but I was like, what the heck am I supposed to do now? Right. And he said to me 4 or 5 times, like, I have this vision of you in this like white coat and in front of all these people. And they're like, I see many of them in wheelchairs, and like, I don't know if I'm gonna get through this. So I see many of them in wheelchairs, and you're teaching them how to fly again, and teaching them how to walk again. And like my dad, like he passed away like 13 years ago, but like he's the one that like gave that to me and gave me that vision, and I've held on to it. And when I was going through my stuff, like I got to the point where I just didn't want to live anymore. And I was begging God to save me and everything else. And then I was like, just either take me or like show me what I'm supposed to do. And then the vision for the MS gym came into my head 3 months later, right next to my dad's vision of me standing up, being the medical professional. And now I get to speak at medical schools and medical centers and give people hope, like, because there is a way, And the cool part is with these medical professionals is there's this really growing group out here that's raising this bar. So these old archaic docs or people that are so set in their ways, they're gonna have to rise up or they're just gonna fade out. So there is a revolution happening. There is new stuff happening, and people are realizing that they can heal. I know you follow the medical medium. Like there's dudes like that out there that are presenting this information, and then we are also the messengers bringing this to our own little pockets of people and communities, being like, this is real, you guys. Like, and the cool part is like none of us have talked through this. Like you came to this revelation about detours on your own. I'm validating, and I came to it on my own. I had no one teach me this stuff, Janine. Like I just figured it out because I had to figure it out. Otherwise I wasn't going to be a dad, and I wasn't going to be a husband, and I couldn't walk. I couldn't use my hands. Like I couldn't be with my wife, like all kinds of stuff. Like my body was shutting down, and I'm like, there's a way out.
There is a way out. This is not going to be my life. I want more than this. There's got to be a way. I don't know where that came from, but there's got to be a way, and I will fucking find it.
Well, and that's why you're winning, because you have a drive inside of you being like, I'm just not going to give up. Like quit is not in my operating system.
And it took me so goddamn long. And it took me 10 years to figure this shit out. But the more now that I come across these people who are validating everything, the more I'm able to, like yourself, make it easier for people who are open to learning from our experiences, learning from our pain. And the tears that come up for you, for me, for everybody, I want to talk to everyone who's watching this right now. The tears that come up is because if you're in a place right now where you're having symptoms and you get to a place, I say when you get to a place when you are healed and you don't have symptoms anymore, and you go, it's so fucking unnecessary. All of that pain, all of that suffering that I went through is so unnecessary. It is going to become your mission to get this message out to other people who haven't heard it yet, because you realize that no one needs to live that way anymore. No one needs to be laying in the bed saying, oh my God, please take me. I can't live like this. And then going, okay, fine, you're not going to take me, then show me a way out. And when you get those answers, you live it for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Oh, Trevor, I could talk to you for friggin' hours.
I know, right?
Thank you so much. But before we go, if you have a couple more minutes, we have some questions.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I told my group that we weren't going to do this live. We're going to do a pre-recording, but I wanted to get their questions. So
real quick before you do that, you can keep talking. I'm going to plug in my computer so it doesn't die. So
you know what? Let's take a quick break because I touched my glasses. You plug in your computer. I'm going to clean my glasses because I touched them and now I can. My world is spotty. So everyone, we're taking a break. Take a sip of water. Better be lemon water.
Hydrate.
Maybe some celery juice. Yep. I just finished my heavy metal smoothie.
Three slow breaths. Fuel your brain.
This is perfect. Now I can see clearly. You plug in, because how many times have I gotten that message? 3 minutes until power out. I'm like, oh shit, I have to plug it back in. All right.
That happened to me the other day. I was talking to like 3 different physicians, and I was like, I had to like text my girls to like run up my power cord from my house down there. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not good.
And you're so embarrassed because you're like, I prepared for this. I really did.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm such a professional.
I know. All right, this question comes from. Don't worry, y'all. I got you. I just said the technology part is not for me.
Oh yeah, my wife is my tech support team.
You're lucky. My husband is not.
I can fix a brain. I can't fix anything else.
My husband goes, I can fix your car. Don't ask me about your damn computer. But I have 2 teenagers, so that's fine. They can do it.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
All right. So from Maureen, she said, my questions are, she's got a couple of them. The first one is, I have spasticity since HSCT, especially in the hamstrings and quads and leftover and and her back. I'm a member of the MS Gym. Is Trevor considering training other PTs in MS Gym practices or therapies to work specifically with patients with spasticity? So basically, she's looking for a PT who specializes in spasticity the way you do in her area. Any plans?
Well, okay. So number one with HSCT, if that spasticity happened after HSCT, I would really dive into what Janine's doing with the heavy metal toxicity, because that chemo will get in your body, it will saturate your cells, and you could be in a continual chemological, that's not even a word, chemical threat response. What is it? Chemoreceptor, right? So your chemoreceptors in your body are constantly thinking that there is a threat going on, and like it could cause spasticity, because spasticity is a protective response because there's like a weird disruption in your joint receptors in between your bones, right? So heavy metal toxicity stuff, dietary changes, and then movement, like really focusing on a lot of the joint receptor movement that we do in the MS Gym. Like it's not just, if I have you do it, where's my camera? This way. It's opposite. So if I have you do it like an elbow circle like this, it's not just turn your elbow in a circle. You literally have to create resistance in 360 degrees. You can see my hand shaking as I'm doing it, to create tension in that joint receptor to get it to kick in. Mechanoreception, meaning your joint's ability to sense movement, inhibits your nociception, which is your threat response. It down regulates it. So by working on movement, it down regulates the activity of your threat responses, which will in turn also dull or turn down the volume on your threat responses in response to chemotherapy as well. So if you get better at modulating or dropping down your threat responses in your body through movement, that will help you combat and possibly kind of reset your breakers in your body that are saying that there's chemicals in my body that are toxic. I don't like this. And that could alleviate a lot of those symptoms. All right. So with that said, you need to find someone that has that understanding of how important joint reception is and what the central nervous system does to modulate threat. Because traditional physical therapy is not going to cut it. There has to be a brain-based progression and flow to actually progressively reduce that threat of whatever's going on in your body. At this current state, I'm not in any position to like create a certification program. It is in our long-term play as far as like training therapists, trainers, Pilates instructors, yoga instructors, people like Janine, like stuff like that. Like I want to be able to build soldiers and build an army to go out and do this. It's just a question of like time right now, because I have like 5,000-6,000 people in the MS Gym that I'm helping. I have 85,000 people that I'm speaking to on socials each week. There's just a lot going on. Plus I have a wife that I want to be with. I have 3 little girls. Like there's not enough Trevor to go around right now. Right. But
that's a lot.
It is something that's inside of me. I love educating, and I would love to have a group of peeps that are like, that I can just say, hey, cool, we're training you and you can send it out. But I would just say, stay tuned, because it's probably coming down the road.
I think you just got a big long line of people who just want to be those soldiers, myself included. What I heard you say was, let's get rid of the shit inside of your body. So I hear lemon water, celery juice, the heavy metal smoothie, let's get rid of the shit. And then the MS Gym, there are things that you can do to strengthen while you're removing the crap.
Yes, you need to do both concurrently. That's like complementary treatment plans are the name of the game. Like, because that's how your body works. Like you don't want to just do the detox and then when you're feeling better, then move and then maybe like everything you need to have a multi-pronged play all the time. It needs to be a lifestyle program, not a compartmentalized thing that you do.
And knowing Maureen, because she's a client, I know she's saying right now, she's like, okay, I'm on the right path. I'm doing the right thing. You are,
yeah,
Maureen.
You're in the right place.
Keep going with what you're doing. All right. She says, second question. I have not been working as hard in the MS Gym because of a constant merry-go-round of UTIs. I go from UTI, antibiotics, side effects, to fungal infections, to antibiotics. So I'm constantly feeling lousy. It's not a lack of energy. It's inflammation. Does Trevor have any solutions? I know about the pelvic pelvic tilts, but anything else, then she says the celery juice is helping with this severity. So in addition to pelvic tilts, what would you recommend? Where does she go first?
Well, pelvic tilts will help mobilize like that area. I mean, like a lot of the breath techniques that we use where you're activating and relaxing that pelvic floor, which is what's called your intrinsic kinetic chain, which involves muscles in your throat, your diaphragm, your abdominals, your pelvic floor. Those are going to help, get blood flow and activation and neurologic focus on that area. With UTIs, it typically is happening because bladder function has been disrupted, whether it's overactive or underactive. Probably the best thing to start kind of trying to regulate that, in addition to like the parasites and getting rid of the viruses and all that, is going to be your breath work, because vagus nerve is directly tied to bladder. Vagus nerve is one of the best things that you can do to regulate your reproductive area, right? And that bladder area, like that whole system, urogenital, there you go. Like kidneys, ureters, bladder, reproductive organs, pelvic floor, that whole area is very vagus nerve dependent. So breath work is going to be probably your number one thing that you can possibly do, because if you can decrease the amount of tension in that pelvic floor, because it's doing the work that the rest of your body isn't, is trying to protect you and be the balance center, because your vestibular system probably isn't as strong, your visual system probably isn't as strong, and you're probably not breathing well, because most people with chronic stuff don't. If you can get that stuff back on track. So eye drills, vestibular drills, and breath drills, and those become things that you do throughout your whole day, talking 3 days a week or 3 times a day. Eat like just a minute of like visual drills, of like vestibular drills, and like maybe 2 to 5 minutes of breathing. You got 20 minutes a day that you're working on things to improve your bladder function. If you get that bladder function going, your UTIs will go. And then that will decrease your inflammation, decrease your viral load, and you will be able to move better.
What a great answer. My God. Maureen, if you're watching this right now, we're going to bring this into the group. We're going to be looking into the breath work, and we're going to be doing this together. We all need this.
Yeah.
Trevor, thank you. That was excellent. All right. I also have late stage osteoarthritis in left lateral tibia with meniscus tear in my left knee, making it harder to walk. I went to orthopedic doctor who said I need knee replacement surgery. He said he can't operate on me until spasticity is gone. Is there anything I can do to avoid surgery?
Well, you can always avoid surgery. It's just how well are you functioning, right? So there is a time and place for surgery. Like if your knees are completely slaughtered and like basically like you're in pain all the time, it may benefit you. Like I've had people who have had hip replacements and knee replacements in the MS gym. They've gone in, they've got it done, and all of a sudden, like that's the thing they needed. Their body just needed a reset. And with those with the new artificial joints in there, their body felt less threatened. And so therefore like spasticity and symptoms went down. But I've also had the other side of things happen too, where they go in for a surgery, they're not prepped well beforehand. Like the new hardware and the challenge of having to actually figure out how to move with a joint that isn't yours, that's from the outside, that is artificial, that becomes a whole new motor program, because the bones aren't getting the signals anymore because you have a piece of metal in there or a piece of whatever in there. Okay. So then there's this whole new system of having to learn how to move again with those new joints. So there's kind of, that's the spectrum. So you've got to kind of decide what you feel like is going to be the best move for you. If you decide that you want to do surgery and you want to decrease that spasticity, you've got to go and reduce the spasticity in those peroneal groups, which is on the outside of that lower lateral leg, your popliteus, which is like basically the muscle behind your knee, your VMO, which is the muscle on the lower medial side of your quad. Those 3 areas have got to get taken care of. Otherwise, that spasticity is not going to leave and that doctor won't operate. Now, I have had people that have like all that spasticity is probably in there protecting your knee. So if you reduce the spasticity and get that out of there, and then you actually strengthen your calves, your hamstrings, and your quads, along with your glutes and your intrinsic core system, you may not need surgery because your body's like, oh my gosh, I have all this stability. Right now, spasticity and pain is a threat response, and it's trying to tell you, dude, there's something wrong. We've got to lock everything down. So I know it's kind of a long-winded answer, but
no, it's perfect. And it's recorded. So we're going to go back and take notes, Trevor. This is perfect. And I want to get to all the questions. Trevor, how are we doing on time? If at any moment you're like, Janine, we're done. Done.
No, you're okay. Just keep going. We're good.
All right, Melissa
I want to serve your people.
That's why I'm going to race through these questions right now to get to all of them. Good. Thank you so much. All right, Melissa says, can C-spine lesions be helped by neuroplasticity?
Yes.
Great answer. Perfect. Everything we just talked about. Yes.
Yes, they can. There's this big old debate out there about spinal cord not being able to. They're like, the spinal cord, can you actually have neuroplastic change in your spinal cord? Well, like, you have to. Because if all of a sudden you have these breaking points in your spinal cord, which is the highway communicating with all your peripheral nerves, if that can't change, then function is just going to keep diminishing. So I don't have like a pile of research to lend you to, but I can tell you this: I have worked with paralytics and partial paralytics and amputees and people from the VA, people from Craig Hospital out here, where they said, or stroke victims where they're like blown apart. And it's like, they're like, this is all the function you're going to get back. And then a year and a half later, these people are up on their feet walking again.
Right.
So like anecdotal, experiential proof, I've seen it done. I've done it with them. It does work. So especially in your neck, you have that's one of the most vital pieces of your entire body. Like that's where your brainstem sits. Okay. So if you have C-spine lesions and you have lesions on your brainstem and they're telling you that there's not much you can do, like I have lesions on my brainstem in my neck.
Doesn't matter.
They've probably been there for a while. Right. But yet I've built myself up from not being able to walk on a treadmill for 2 minutes at like 1.2 miles an hour to deadlifting 400 pounds again, swimming like I did in high school, doing box jumps, doing agility drills, doing power, like Olympic lifts, stuff like that. Like because of all the stuff that I do in the MS gym. So like I have them there. So therefore, like I'm living proof that spinal cord stuff does change and can change.
Right. Make the detours. Body's going to take the detours. The body's going to get that signal to where it needs to go, no matter what it needs to do. Just give it the resources and the energy to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. All right. Dana asks, if you're struggling with mobility for a few years due to MS, is it possible to fully reverse this? Like for me, I have severe foot drop and my right foot drags badly. I think we already answered this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The body can always heal.
Yeah, it's gonna. There's no time. Like it's not like, oh, it's 6 weeks, you'll be fine. When your body's ready to feel safe using that foot again, that's when it's gonna feel safe using that foot again. The best thing you can do is improve your sensory nervous system by massage, cold therapy, warm therapy, vibration therapy, kinetic taping, stuff like that. Like that's the sensory input. Then you got to start moving those joints around, like toe by toe, ankle by ankle, every single range of motion. Then you got to actually activate the vestibular system, which feeds into the foot through the lumbosacral plexus, which by doing vestibular work is going to improve the connection points and start to activate those other detour roads back down to your feet. And if you've had mobility issues for a couple years where they've been symptomatic, you're not 27 years in with a bunch of compensatory movement patterns that we have to reverse. You're a couple years in, which you probably have major compensations, but you haven't been doing this and walking that way for 33 years, right? So yes, like whether you're going to get back 100% neurologic function based on diagnostic testing, I don't know. But for you to get back to a place where you are walking and functioning how you want to be able to do the things that you want, yes, it is absolutely possible. Will that be 100% symptom-free like it was when you were 18 years old? Probably not, because there has been a neurologic trauma in there. But that doesn't mean that 90%, your body's going to get used to that 90%, anatomical function. That is going to slowly become your 100%, and you're going to feel really good.
And plus, is anything like it was back when we were 18? Symptoms are not. Nothing's like it was.
No, we've all screwed
gravity
ourselves
out there
so
is
bad.
real.
Yeah. Like a human being, and if you lived your life in any capacity, your body is going to have some wear and tear on it. It's just the way it is. That's why we take our cars in to get tune-ups, right? When do we take our bodies again to get tune-ups?
No.
You don't.
Yeah.
So that's why
You know
every
how I
single
look
day
at
needs to be a tune-up.
all those scars and all those stretch marks from my 45 years of living, they're all battle scars. And I'm proud of every single one of them because it shows my story. My story is literally written all over my body.
Check it. I got my own canvas.
Oh, I like that line. I'm going to use that.
You like that? Yeah.
All right. Diane Michael asks, she said, my legs from hip to toe are weak. I have spasticity in my right leg. It's difficult to lift my right foot high enough so I don't trip. Is this weakness in my knee or my hip? Is that a question you can answer?
It's weakness in your intrinsic kinetic chain.
Of course you can answer it.
Yeah. So if I drop this down, your intrinsic kinetic chain, that hip flexor starts here, all the way up. Weak pelvic floor or a spastic pelvic floor, a weak diaphragm, a weak core, those muscles are not going to be able to activate. All right. In order for you to be able to lift your foot, you have got to activate your psoas. In order to activate your psoas, if you cannot do it by muscular action, you can activate that psoas in its insertion point on L2, L3, L4 in your spine by doing breath work. So by working that kinetic chain through breathing drills, you actually send neurologic signaling into your hip flexors, which is where lifting your leg initiates, and then it ends at your foot. Everybody thinks it's from foot up. No, it's from core down. Everything is from proximal out, right? Proximal to distal in the body. So this area of your body, if this is dysfunctional, your limbs, your body doesn't care if your limbs don't work. If inside your spine's about to blow apart because you have no core stability. So breath work is the best freaking thing that you can do to activate and start activating your hip flexor that is dysfunctional. Not just doing a bunch of hip flexor drills or foot drop drills, because you're working on the end of the chain when the beginning of the chain is totally dysfunctional.
We're seeing a pattern, guys. We are seeing a pattern. I swear your membership numbers are going to skyrocket after this airs. All right. She had a second part to her question. Also, this is also from Diane, same client. I was sat down for a couple months due to an operation, and when I returned to my physio, we didn't focus on strengthening, only stretching. My question is this: because I haven't focused on strengthening exercises and I had an operation on my abdomen, is this possibly the reason for my lack of strength? I'm scared it's something more with my MS and I don't want to lose more mobility.
So the fact that you had an abdominal injury and you had surgery that set you down, you like your entire intrinsic kinetic chain that I just talked about is shut down. Yeah. The whole thing. So you need to be on your back, feet up 90 degrees on a chair. I can't even do that. Whatever. 90 degrees on a chair. There you go. Boop, there you go.
It's hard when it's reversed.
Right? Like it's all reversed. I'm like, what is happening?
It looks like he's doing the Vogue. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm like, strike a pose, right? Yeah. It's in my head now. I'm sorry.
I know, me too.
Vogue, let your body move.
I gotta put like background music to this when it airs. He can do that really well, actually.
Right? I can throw down. Madonna and me are tight. So if you've had abdominal surgery, if you're a woman and you've given birth, if you've had a C-section, you've had zero rehab. So aside from MS, if you've given birth 1, 2, 3, 4 different times, all of that mechanism in your intrinsic kinetic chain is probably shut down. And there is very few physical therapists or trainers that I know that specialize in helping women after birth, after C-sections, after abdominal stuff to actually get strong again. Now, you're not going to be able to sit there and do a bunch of crunches and stuff. That's not going to do anything anyway, but you've got to get that breathing canister fixed. And that comes through inhaling 4 seconds through your nose, exhaling 6 to 8 seconds through your mouth till those lungs are empty and you can feel those abs contract, that pelvic floor pull up, that diaphragm contract, your spinal muscles contract. Just doing that alone will feed movement into a spine and into weak abdominals to help you stand upright, right? Just stretching after surgery, like, I'm not going to say it was a bad strategy, but it was a backward strategy. Like, you're already weak. Why would you try to lengthen muscles even more? You need to strengthen them and get function back around your body and then see if you even need to stretch.
God, you're debunking so many of these things. This is why it's so important to bring this information to the masses, because we are told the opposite. And we're also, as MS patients, going into the neurologist and saying, I have this, and that. Their answer is, oh, well, you have MS. So, get used to it. So
Cool.
many of
Then
these,
what?
right. So many of these things have nothing to do with MS. They have nothing to do with the virus. Like you just said, did you have kids? Yeah. You know what? And hearing you answer Diane's question, I'm going, oh my goodness. Yeah. I just had my third kid a year and a half ago after 17 years. Mm-hmm. All of these things, you're right. No one gives us the physio afterwards. We'd never heal from that. Mine wasn't a C-section, but I can see from my stomach, everything has to come back together. And the breathing, yeah, how often do we catch ourselves shallow breathing because of all the shit we have to deal with in our lives?
Well, and think about you ladies that have pregnancies, like you have a belly that's fully like distended out. How are you supposed to belly breathe when you have a baby like pushing those muscle tissues apart? You become natural chest breathers. Right. Which is why so many women have neck issues, shoulder issues. They end up in an osteoporotic like Dowagger's hump like this all the time. They end up with osteoporosis in their upper spine because they never get this back to normal.
No, it's not back to normal.
And it's totally doable. I don't care how old you are, it can happen. So, and this is the connection we need to make. No, MS is not causing that problem, but because you have weakness in that system, you're not as able to counteract the weakness and just disruptions neuromuscularly that come from MS because your body's not strong enough yet. It doesn't have the resources. Plus, your brain is probably under oxygenated, which means it's under fueled, which means you don't even have the fuel to move, right? And if your body doesn't have enough fuel through movement, through breathing, and through food, it prefers to sit on your butt or on your back because that uses the least amount of energy possible.
Trevor, this information is amazing. And I can't thank you enough for your time. All of this stuff that you've just clarified and just made it sound so easy and simple. You just have to address your body, the mind, and the soul. Everything is connected. Everything is connected, right. And there are ways to do it. And I love what you say. I couldn't believe how similar our messages are. The MS Gym, you don't charge an arm and a leg for it. You keep it so that everyone has access to it. And the msgym.com, you go on there. I think, what did I see? That's $15 a month. $15 a month gets you a membership. There's no excuse. There's no reason to not heal your body. It's absolutely possible, no matter where you are in your symptoms, no matter where you are in your age. So how often do you get on a stage and you talk like this to people? How often do you get the opportunity to do this?
It kind of goes in like spurts. Like so after I did Cornell, I did that in like January. This year's been a lot. About every other month, I've been asked to do something. The end of May, I had like 3 presentations in 1 week, which was insane. So I get on stage and do that for other organizations, but then I have such a passion for this. We're really expanding our workshops. So I'm going to be doing a lot of workshops, both for our members, but then more so for people it's open to everybody. Some of them will be free. Some of them will be like low paid for, depending on the amount of content, what I'm offering and giving to you guys and how much time it is. But that's where I'm going. I really want to be an educator for this community, not just some exercise dude slinging programs. Like that's the follow-up and that's the method. But unless you understand why you're doing this, then the power of the programs is in understanding the value behind it and the reason why you're doing it. And then I'm just like, okay, cool. Now I got you. We're in. You say yes. Here's the path. Like, let's go.
And you don't need the motivation anymore. Motivation runs out. You need the education, because the education is what's going to keep you going. You don't even need motivation once you're educated.
Well, yeah, because if you're educated that like, if I don't move, my body's going to keep disintegrating, wouldn't the motivation come from that? I mean,
right. You don't need those pep talks. You don't need the cheerleaders. You don't need to build yourself up. You just go, no, this is what I'm doing today. And it's easy. It's always the awareness. It's the education that keeps people going. Trevor, can we find your talks and your workshops? Everything's going to be on the website, because I know people are going to want a lot more after seeing this. I know I do.
Yeah, so thank you. So just go to the msgym.com. And then you can go up in all the free resources, like up on the navigation tools, and that gives you a link. We have a link tree to all of our stuff. I think the Weill Cornell presentation is in there. We have a ton of free programs. Like I have a lot of paid for stuff. And like Janine said, like the Symptom Solutions program is $15 a month. You go in there and it is called Symptom Solutions. It's organized by symptoms. So you go in and there's foot drop and there's one-off drills for foot drop. There's brain activation series where it's like you're working your foot, but you're working the opposite wrist and you're doing some vestibular work. Why? Because that's how the brain is set up. So I've already built that in there. You just need to press play and go, right? So that's kind of our entry level membership program. Then there's one that comes with a support group and coaching for me and all that. But we have a ton of free resources because like I want to make this available to people. I mean, we have full programs that give you circuits of exercises that are free. And we have YouTube, we have Instagram, we have all the things, right? So like go find it and experiment and like try to see and try to like just prove to yourself that you can move and you can stay active and you can do this, because the number one reason why people get worse is that they just get so wrecked by the diagnosis. And then people can go through depression, they can go through panic. Like it is a grieving process, right? And a lot of times you have to go through the grief and get to that acceptance place to be like, okay, cool, I have this. Like, what am I going to do about it? Right? Because if you get stuck in the bitterness and you get stuck in the like disbelief and you get stuck in the like, why me? It's going to be really tough to find any motivation to do anything. But if you educate yourself about why and how this can work, then sometimes you just kind of got to go through the motions and like press play and just do something for 5 minutes. And you'll probably start to feel better because the brain is activated through movement, you know? So this is truly like eating well and drinking the juices and doing the things that you guys are doing with Janine. It's the same concept. You want to nourish your body, and you do that with movement, with food, with breathing, with thinking, with breath control, with sleep, all of it.
Trevor, thank you so much. I know everyone enjoyed this. This is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for your time. And I can't wait to talk to you again. We'll be seeing you in the MS gym for sure. I'm going to stop recording now. You hang on for just a second. Everyone, thank you so much for being here with us. I hope you had a great time.
Yeah, see you guys.